Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. From an internal source, we're getting more specs of the Model Y Austin. I mean, if you ever needed more confirmation on this Model Y being 4680, then here it is. Okay, I may have guessed the plaid cells incorrectly, but really only because Tesla blew us away that much with their revolutionary new motor, but I've learned a lot since then, and it looks like I was right about this Model Y. We finally have our 4680 vehicle. Tesla say, "We're excited to introduce Model Y all-wheel drive, the first vehicle manufactured at Giga Texas. Model Y all-wheel drive uses our first structural battery pack with 4680 cells." Actually, I quoted this text in the last video too, but we have further info about it all now as well. So look, I think we can all turn the narrative over to 4680 and give up on all the LFP theories. They didn't add up before anyway, but I hope now hearing it from Tesla, we can move on and analyze what this actually means now it's 4680 cells. Now all the other data we've collected can fall into place. We're given confirmation on the price and specs we previously had heard, $59,990. This will presumably be the same price when sold to the public. And we assume it will be available to the public because it mentions about the vehicle not yet being on the configurator, as it says, Model Y all-wheel drive is not yet available on the configurator or via inventory. So it does sound like this car is going to be sold to the public. Obviously it has 270 miles of range and it achieves 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, slightly lower than the Model Y long range at 4.8 seconds. The Model Y long range has 384 horsepower, so I think this new all-wheel drive will be closer to 300 horsepower. That is still a very powerful vehicle, by the way. It also has insane torque due to it being electric. Torque is more about how quickly it takes until you feel this power. Electric is more on and off, like a light switch. When you turn it on, the lights are on. It doesn't need to rev up until it reaches full brightness, like an ICE equivalent vehicle does. Alright, we know the range and performance, but what is making all this happen? What is the size of this battery pack? But we are hearing an estimated 98 watt-hours per cell from the 4680, and we counted 828 cells going into this new battery pack. That comes in at over 81 kilowatt hours, or about the same size battery pack as the Model Y long range. This is not the case, as Tesla go on to say that they've chosen to put a lower energy battery pack in the Model Y all-wheel drive, resulting in lower range, acceleration and price point. Just how much lower is the trillion-dollar question? If we assume that this pack is between 60 and 70 kilowatt hours, that would mean each cell is between 72 and 85 watt hours. However, the 2170 is about 18 watt hours, and we were told to expect about 5 times as much energy, or around 90 watt hours per cell. So possibly the 4680 cells are only getting around 80 watt hours per cell, and perhaps the improved chemistry is still to come. Or the other alternative is that this standard version may have also been an afterthought, and these 828 cell packs were for a long range, but they're now making packs with fewer cells instead. But it seems like a lot of performance to have shown us them manufacturing these with 828 cells. But the math needs to add up, so it's one or the other. Either they're using fewer cells, or the watt hours per cell is a lot lower. However, fewer cells could also have a synonymous outcome as fewer quality cells, as in the reject rate is still high on the 4680 cells, and they're producing lower yields. Therefore, although there are 828 cells, perhaps 10% of them are rejects. Also, the fact this vehicle only does 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, compared to 4.8 seconds for the Model Y long range, despite being potentially about 700 pounds lighter, might also indicate a reasonably smaller battery, as there is less power drawn from the batteries from the motor, but it's hard to put a number on. Of course, another theory is that there isn't so much that they're having issues with the 4680s per se, it's just a shortage of them relative to the demand they have. And Model Y demand is just so crazy that they need to get as many out as possible, and at this high price tag, the margins are nuts. So they want as many as possible. I mean, I'd suggested in the past that this car would cost about $5,000 less, but Tesla aren't holding back on price. They're selling it for $60,000. That is really astronomical. I mean, you've got to think that perhaps there are some extra features about this car that make it worthy to warrant such a high price tag. Well, good question. What are going to be the advantages over buying the long-range Model Y for only a little bit of extra cost? While it's highly possible that the wait time may be less, some consumers are willing to pay $12,000 extra for FSD in order to receive their Model Y earlier. If the waiting list for this vehicle is just 3 months, compared to about a year for a long range, then that would be a good reason for many to buy the Austin version. Is it possible it has a faster charging speed? Although I'm not entirely sure this is likely. It would appear that the wider diameter cell tabless, i.e. 48mm, does take longer even than the 2170 version with a tab. This might have been a trade-off, but worth it given all the other advantages the 4680 battery brings, and we might only be talking an extra minute at the supercharger, so probably a negligible trade-off. But what about if you can charge and discharge the battery from 100% to 0% compared to the 2170 long range, which you need to maintain between 90 and 10% generally to save degradation? Well, to be honest, I haven't actually heard anyone else discussing this, nor do I have anything to go on this. We know that LFP batteries can do 100 to 0, but the 4680s are going to be nickel based. We still don't know all the magic Tesla's performed in these batteries, so who can say? If these batteries can achieve that though, it would certainly be an advantage that consumers will see value in and willing to justify a higher price tag. The structural battery pack will provide additional safety as there is less likelihood of any of the cells being impacted in a collision due to there being a smaller area of cells, and as a result they can be placed closer to the center of the vehicle. For the same reason, the car will also handle better, reducing polar motion of inertia. It means it will just corner and steer better due to the weight distribution more centered in the car. Also, all the weight saving will also improve handling, so it will be a better car to drive. And we could assume that it has a 1 million mile battery life. Before Battery Day, Elon was very vocal about making a battery that had a 1 million mile life. However, it was not mentioned on Battery Day. But in the Cato Road 4680 video, the song that played in the video, Honeybee by Don Hinton, the lyrics say, "Just to kiss you baby, I'd walk 1 million miles." Kind of like Tesla are hinting that they can reach 1 million miles. Okay, it's quite loosely based, but we would expect these 4680 vehicles to have a longer life than 2170. Again, there is value in that to justify a higher equivalent price tag. And apparently there are some extra features too, such as a magnetic center console armrest and a parcel shelf. All in all, I don't think Tesla are going to have any trouble selling these versions even at this price tag. I think this new Y is pretty much a superior car in every way, except a tiny bit less acceleration and slightly less convenient when doing longer trips, which honestly for most people is rare. What it does mean is we are going to be looking at crazy margins. These cells cost less than 2170. In fact, the entire battery pack, the entire vehicle would cost less, a lot less than the Fremont vehicles within time when they're ramped up. If the Model Y long range cost about $40,000 for cost of goods sold per vehicle, then just the battery pack alone in this new vehicle, if we had fewer cells and even if there was just a 30% cost saving, then we save $5,000 on just the cells. But we have the battery pack and front castings on top of that and all the other improved manufacturing processes, then I would estimate this all-wheel drive version is, or at least eventually, going to be down to around $30,000 cost of goods sold per vehicle, which is a 50% gross margin. Okay, even if it still costs $35,000 to build, then that is still about 40% margin too, and that's just the standard version, as in no upgraded wheels, paint, or FSD. They really could be about 40 to 50% margin. And that's just the cost of goods sold. Of course, there is less capex per vehicle required too, at least within time, again when ramped up. This additional gross profit goes straight into EBIT, as the OPEX will remain the same if the margins are 30% or 50%. This is a huge jump. Of course, not all models will have this much margin, but the more they ramp up Texas, the higher the proportion will be. If all vehicles produced ended up hitting that much margin, then net profits would more than double, to give you an idea of what it means. So there we are, we're narrowing it down. I believe that this vehicle is likely hitting all sorts of sweet spots. The biggest thing left to really find out is how many cells the vehicle is using, along with the official battery pack size. It would also be great to know the weight. Anyway, it's slowly all coming out. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.